Right now, millions of people, maybe even someone you know, are being pulled into a story. This young man sitting alone, illuminated by the dim glow from his phone. Tom's frustrated, and honestly, who can blame him? He sees prices going up, wages stagnating, and politicians talking round in circles. No one seems to care about people like him. Tom's looking for explanations, just like anyone else. But one explanation starts to feel right. Simple, clear, and satisfying. It feels like someone's finally getting what he's been going through. That things aren't fair. That the people in charge aren't fixing it. It all suddenly makes sense. But the problem is, some people don't want him to find real answers. What if the people Tom is starting to trust aren't trying to explain things, they're trying to manipulate him? By the end of this video, you'll see exactly how people build the rabbit holes designed to trap us, and more importantly, how we can help each other find a way out. Let's dive in. If you're new here, I'm Zach, a hospital doctor from Scotland. I make videos about public speaking and critical thinking skills, trying to raise the standard of global debate. If you find this breakdown useful, please share it. Someone you know might need to see this. Part 1. Emotional manipulation. Back to Tom. He didn't start off here, but someone knew how to exploit his vulnerability. The first step is emotional manipulation. This includes tactics like othering, scapegoating, fear-mongering, and dog whistling. Let me show you how stories can be twisted to provoke an emotional reaction with a real-world example. In 2024, in a quiet town in Southport in the United Kingdom, a tragic incident occurs. Multiple girls are stabbed at a local dance class.
3 innocent young girls killed in a frenzied knife attack.
Social media explodes with rumours. A false claim spreads that an asylum seeker named Ali al-Shakati is responsible. Fear and anger build. Comments like, "Protect our kids. This is what they bring," start to flood the internet. A right-wing influencer posts on social media. He doesn't outright accuse anybody. He's just asking questions. Who are these men? We don't know. Why aren't they being vetted? We don't know. Days later, a mob gathers outside hotels housing asylum seekers, waiting for decisions on their applications. Bricks are thrown. Fights break out. The hotel is set on fire. When the truth finally emerges, it's revealed that the attacker was a British man, Axel Rudakabana, who was later jailed for life, but by then, the narrative has already shifted. It's no longer about the little girls, it's about a local backlash, about concerns to migration. Let's break down the logical tactics used here. This true story shows how emotional appeals were presented as facts and arguments, even when they were baseless. First, fear-mongering, exaggerating threats to create panic. The evidence here of the attack did suggest a serious crime had happened, but without an investigation there was no evidence to link it to an asylum seeker or to support a wider threat. False claims and emotional anecdotes are amplified in the moment, weaponizing fear and anger to justify mob actions. Politicians can take this a step further with dog whistling. Coded language is used to plant ideas subtly, like when the influencers ask, "Who are these men?" On the one hand, admitting he doesn't know, whilst at the same time implying stricter vetting would have made a difference, something that would only be true of immigrants. The dog whistle appeals to people's prejudices, while allowing politicians to hide behind questions and pretend that that wasn't their intention.
I was asking some gentle questions that I thought were fair and reasonable.
However, people, perhaps like Tom, who already hold the assumption, feel the intended message. Immigrants and minorities are the threat. Dog whistles like these rely on your assumptions. Recognizing the tactic reveals their true intent. Finally, moral absolutism. The Southport example ramped up a feeling that Britain needs to return to the good old days when Britain was safe, prosperous, and united, not in the grip of woke liberals who hate our country. Framing one side as good and the other as evil hides a lot of complex facts and nuance, and influences to make emotional snap judgments. If we stop to think, we'd realise asylum seekers are in hotels because of that same anti-immigrant feeling. Politicians don't want to appear soft, so they increase the bureaucracy around granting asylum, leading to the backlog and preventing an efficient system from being designed. All this goes to show that emotional appeals are not designed to explain, they are designed to inflame. As neuroscientists know, the amygdala, which is the part of the brain that detects threats, reacts faster than our prefrontal cortex, which handles more rational thought. This is why fear and outrage feel so immediate and overwhelming. It's neurologically hardwired. If you've ever thought you've seen a creepy crawly out of the corner of your eye when you're tired, and then found out that you're wrong on your second look, then you understand how the amygdala works, because it's exactly the same neural circuits that do that. But this also tells us that engaging our prefrontal cortex with our slower, rational thought is what we have to do to break this. If we start questioning the disgust, the outrage, the moral certainty, it all starts to crumble. So the next time you feel outraged by what you see, ask yourself, who is benefiting from that? And if you're liking the video so far, please don't be afraid to give it a like and subscribe. Tom's fear alone is not enough. Once you feel threatened, you need an enemy, and that's where the next phase begins. Step 2. The second essential step in Tom's journey is to encourage othering, tactics to divide people into us and them. Tom's on TikTok watching a politician who's saying, "We need to take care of our own before helping them." The video overlays images of immigrants arriving on boats while showing struggling British families in poverty. If you want to make someone the enemy, there are 3 key logical techniques you use: generalization, scapegoating, and at the most extreme, dehumanization. Together, these techniques encourage us to strip away the complexity, the humanity of a group, and reduce any moral empathy for them. Generalization works like this. It uses broad, unsubstantiated claims, making easy villains out of complex groups. People who are vulnerable to this bias are often more likely to think that other groups are more likely to all be the same, while of their own group they're more likely to appreciate differences. Single examples might be used to make claims about a whole group. That can confirm our prejudice without any evidence.
Damn Scots! They ruined Scotland!
If the generalization is not truly representative, that's when it can be used to push a false narrative. Once othering is established, more extreme devices like scapegoating can be used. This redirects legitimate frustrations about wages, healthcare, or crime away from those in power and onto an easy target. But think about it. Does removing immigrants actually solve the economic problem? Does it build more hospitals? No, because the real causes, stagnant growth, transfer of wealth to the rich away from the rest of society, austerity, lack of investment, these are all conveniently ignored. The most extreme form of othering is dehumanization. This tactic carries the implication that the other group doesn't really have to be treated as human beings. Because of that, dehumanization can be an immediate precursor to violence against that group when used by political leaders, as it was in the Rwandan genocide and other conflicts around the world. Hurting another human is incredibly difficult for many people to do, but painting them as subhuman over years can lower the moral barrier, as it has done so many times in history. Othering works because us and them language makes us feel that they, whoever they are the problem. But when the problem isn't actually them, but the system's failing all of us, then it's not actually a good solution. So when you see othering being used, is someone trying to shift the blame from something else that's important? Part 3. Truth distortion. Once Tom is emotionally hooked and set against a group, the final step is truth distortion, altering who you trust, whether you apply your values consistently, and causing you to deny facts. Imagine this. A controversial speaker arrives at a university. Protesters gather outside. A scuffle breaks out, and someone posts a slowed down clip, making it look like the protesters started the violence. The speaker tweets, "They tried to silence me, but the truth will always win." You can't even say basic biology anymore. We are living under a woke dictatorship. The talk is entitled Defending Western Values. The next morning, social media explodes. One headline says, "Woke extremists shut down free speech again." A second headline, "Right-wing provocateur stokes chaos at university." Tom sees both headlines, and so do millions of others, choosing the one that aligns most with their beliefs. At this point, Tom isn't just consuming content, he's trusting a narrative. And once you do that, you start seeing everything through that lens. That's where truth distortion comes in. The techniques that can be used for truth distortion include false cause attribution, pretend credibility, and disguising political attacks. Firstly, false cause attribution. One of the most effective ways to shape perception is to connect two unrelated things and present them as cause and effect. And this isn't new. In 2016, Nigel Farage's infamous Breaking Point poster linked immigration to economic collapse without a shred of evidence. It's the same tactic when people claim rising crime is caused by Muslims or that trans rights are erasing women. The pattern is always the same. Find an existing fear, link it to a scapegoat, and push the connection until people stop questioning it. In this story, it's wokeness and censorship. A certain amount of cherry picking goes into these narratives. The media focuses only on the newsworthy aspects, the scuffle, the shouting, the anger. False cause attribution means the fact that most protesters were peaceful and the speech still happened was ignored. Studies have shown false news spreads farther, faster, deeper, and more broadly than true news online, and perhaps this is why. But was free speech really under attack? The talk still happened, most protesters were peaceful. What's actually happening with these disputed events is social disagreement. Free speech has consequences, and people are reacting. This wasn't really about silencing anyone. It was about a deliberate political strategy that thrives on outrage for both sides. And the biggest clue that you're dealing with false cause attribution is that the people shouting the loudest about being silenced are often the ones publishing books, appearing on TV, and growing their audience. The second aspect this story shows is pretend credibility. Rather than rely on an independent source such as a police report or statistics about what percentage of the protesters were peaceful, people choose which narrative to believe based on social media reaction. Instead of checking facts, people just ask themselves, does this make sense to me? Does it feel right? And then there's status. If someone important says it, or they're on TV saying it, then we're more likely to believe it. Instead of factual accuracy, social validation becomes the criteria that we're using to decide if something is true or false. There's a danger this blinds us to reality. The third aspect of this story is disguising political attack. In this story, we hint at actions to crack down on the speech of those who disagree, but it is framed as being about disruptive behaviour rather than political views. People can swallow this, thinking that protesters bring it on themselves with how they behave. If you've seen the protest group in the UK, Extinction Rebellion, then you'll know this kind of sentiment. Their protests are not very popular. But if you've already bought into the idea that the woke mobs are dangerous, then you might not realise that the real effect is silencing dissent altogether. If you can convince people that there's a good reason to shut down a different point of view, then their voices will never reach the mainstream. We've seen this play out with Elon Musk, who promised free speech on Twitter, but what did this actually turn out to mean? His free speech absolutism turned out to be boosting voices he liked and shadow banning the ones he didn't. And there's more. So when their ideas are being challenged, it's cancel culture. When others' ideas are shut down, you are asking for it, or vice versa. And if you can ask people to see if they can see the double standard, they will tell you it's just common sense. Now, the moment that you realise that manipulation is a huge part of these narratives should be huge. Tom sees a video claiming that immigrants are destroying the UK. 1 month ago, he would have nodded along, but now something feels off. He looks at the comments, the same outrage, the same slogans. It's not a conversation, it's a script. and suddenly he wonders, why did someone want me to see this? Once you realise how manipulation of emotions and us and them language can be used to distort our sense of truth, it's a profound shift. Tom believed he was hearing the truth, but the truth was he was being sold a story, one designed to keep him angry, engaged, and easy to manipulate, and not titans in his stomach. Will he have the strength to let go of this comforting narrative, or will he reject his newfound doubt and fully embrace the populism no matter where it leads him? That's the choice we all have, and in this story, it's up to you what you do next. Tom is not a villain in this story. If he can notice the manipulation for what it is and teach others, he's potentially a hero. Tom's story isn't unique. Millions of people are pulled into these narratives, not because they're stupid, but because these tactics are designed to be persuasive. It's important to note that in history this has happened before. In the 1930s, economic hardship and propaganda was stoked by Nazi politicians, turning anger into hate. World War II shows us the dangers of this playbook, but the tactics had been around for 50 years before that, manufacturing alternative sources of credibility, scapegoating Jews for the economic woes of the country, and manipulating the emotions of crowds. Today's rhetoric may not look the same, but the techniques, the logic, is chillingly familiar. If we want to stop people like Tom from falling into these rabbit holes, we need to confront the root causes, the inequality, isolation, and the algorithms that fed him extremism in the first place. And we genuinely need to fix them, not with fake solutions like scapegoating groups we don't like, but with real solutions to improve infrastructure and opportunities so people like Tom aren't angry in the first place. For now, the only defense is awareness. So the next time you see rhetoric like this, ask yourself, who benefits? What's the evidence? Is this trying to make me feel before I think? Once you recognize the patterns, you stop falling for propaganda. The anger people feel won't disappear overnight, but it may shift somewhat from immigrants or feminists or woke people to the very people using our pain to manipulate us. Perspective is a light in the darkness of untruth. Together, I'm hoping we can dismantle these narratives and build a society that values truth over likes. And if you want to see me applying some of these tactics to understand why people are being drawn in by Andrew Tate's rhetoric, then look at this video where I take a logical approach to analysing it. I'll see you in the next video.